voice vote changes.
You are live.
Okay, I was wondering what that
Good morning, this is Senate Transportation. It's Wednesday, February 21st. We're going back to budget discussions, and we have Finance Administration here today that's gonna walk us through their.
Great, thank you for having me. For the record, Jana Morris, Director of the Finance and Administration for the Agency of Transportation. And I also have with me Brad McAvoy, who's our Facilities Manager. He'll be supporting our Transportation Buildings presentation as well. So Finance and Administration budget is White Book Section 4. And just a little bit about us. I know all of you are familiar with the agency. Our team encompasses audit, budget and financial operations, contracts and grants administration, civil rights and labor compliance, continuous improvement and innovation, emergency management, performance, our technical training center, Vermont Local Roads as well, hearings, occupational health and safety, organizational performance, records management, and facilities. And we also are the primary liaison for human resources and legal team, as well as one of our two primary liaisons for ADS, our digital services team.
So why do you do local roads? Because that's like grants out to the town.
Vermont Local Roads is primarily supporting municipalities with training and technical services. So it's partnered, it's under the same umbrella, Bureau of Innovation, Learning and Development, as our technical training center. So our finance administration budget this year is just about $24.5 million. It is about $1.3 million in federal and $23.2 million in state funds. There was a white book update for this to increase our federal share by $300,000, and that was just an oversight on our part at where we pulled our, they're called 504E, our federal training dollars are typically dispersed across the agency, and we pulled them into one program, so they're all administered under the VTTC or VTrans Technical Training Center now, instead of being managed by each program. So we have consistency and continuity with how our federal program monies are being managed in that area.
So the right number is 1.356.
1.356, that's correct. If you didn't get the updated white book pages, I can deliver those to you later this afternoon.
Really?
They're all around here somewhere.
Yeah, we're primarily T-fund.
Yeah, I see that.
Yes. Yeah. So our budget is a primarily operational budget. It's 90% fixed costs, so salaries, benefits, all of our internal service fees that we pay for human resources. The AGO, Attorney General's office, is all paid out of finance and administration. We have 6 people that are assigned to our agency for that. We also,
They work at,
sorry,
or they work at the AG's?
they work out of our Berry City Place office.
Okay. But they work for the.
They work for the Attorney General. That's correct.
That's just common.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
but some departments have their own
Thank
council, but some don't.
We do not have a general counsel. We just have our AGO services.
That was a practice that established, I think the Attorney General's office has been concerned about that.
Well, but some don't use the AG's.
So our primary ups with this particular budget are around the standard increase in costs. We had a 3% increase for our normal budget. And then any of our salaries and benefits, those are provided to us by AOA or Human Resources. And we also built into this budget about $275,000 for a software upgrade for our SharePoint system, which is kind of the backbone of our intranet, our internal communications. Our records management system is both in one solution, but also transitory documents and how we manage some of our internal communications. So things like that would normally come through finance administration to be coordinated and funded as an agency-wide effort. And then we have our strategic workforce planning, which is the consolidation of the federal dollars into one bucket to be able to streamline and understand our costs there.
So 10% increase,
Yes.
that's gross across T-Fund and federal.
Yes.
And it's driven, obviously, the upgrades, is that an ongoing or is that a one-time?
The upgrade will be a one-time.
A one-time, and that's in the 10%?
Yes.
And this is obviously most of it's workforce related, as it would be staffing.
It's mostly staffing. We've seen increases in our fuel costs. We've seen increase in our benefits. All of the state share for the benefits that we would have in our finance administration team would come out of there. So it ended up being a little bit more than 3%. We budgeted for a 3% increase, and the cost above that is a little bit higher. All of our allocated services for the agency also are through there. We saw an increase in our ADS service funds. We've seen an increase in our human resource service funds. So everything has gone up and we're absorbing that through this budget. So this is just our spending profile looked at a slightly different way in transportation and federal funds, and then our operating personal services and grants. And the grants is it's all federal monies, and it goes for our summer program for students in transportation, and it's through our civil rights team.
What's the number of position, 138 plus 4? You can't see
We
the
have
bar.
100, oh,
Here, oh, you
I
don't
guess I
have
could look it up.
plus four, four
Four
tens.
tens.
Yes. 127 permanent, 11.
we have 138 total. And then our seasonal temps.
Might be in your subsequent slides, but do you have any longitudinal information about this budget and what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Have you been growing as a department?
We have been growing as a department. We did receive the 11 limited service positions in the last couple of years related to the IIJA. And all of those positions are transitory, so they expire in September 30th, 2026. If we find that the authorization is reauthorized, or federal authorization continues at or above the same level, we'll probably be seeking to continue those limited service positions, or at least some of them. But we have seen growth in this area. A lot of the growth, I think, is because of consolidated services. So we, over the last 5 to 7 years with my predecessor, Director Gamble, looped in emergency management here. We brought in occupational health
But
and
those would be
safety.
downs elsewhere.
They would be downs elsewhere. And then we grew our technical training center team. So that would have been something new that happened in the last 10 years.
What do they do with technical training?
Technical training supports our entire agency with certifications and the support that we need for licensure for both maintenance, highway division.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's all I have on F&A. If there's any other questions about the finance administration budget, I'd be happy to take those before flipping over to transportation buildings.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So transportation buildings is a program that's run through our facilities team. Brad McAvoy is the leader of that particular team, and it's run through the finance and administration team, hence its association with my budget. So for state fiscal 25, we are looking at $2 million for our District 8 facility and $825,000 in statewide maintenance. This supports 424, the St. Albans, yes. Well, it'll be in Swanton, but it's the replacement for the St. Albans facility. This, during our current fiscal.
The capital bill? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's 3.5 million in the capital bill that was given to us this year. So we have signed a contract and we have broken ground already. Work started last week, I believe, Brad? Yes, started last week on the site. So if anyone happens to be in the area, you'll see some equipment and trailers there. We'd be happy to provide some presentation materials on that as well at any point.
What happens to the old one?
So the old facility, we haven't made a determination on yet. The current project, we've had to do in 2 phases. The first phase will be everything for the salt shed, the garage facility, and we're not able to build the office building. We had a $1 million increase in our costs due to having to reroute the water line, so we had to put the office off for another year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, understood that.
Question on what Senator Kitchell just said. So the 3.5 million from last year was from the capital bill. The 2 million proposed this year, is that from the general
Transportation funds. Yeah. And you'll notice the increase in statewide maintenance as well. With the loss of the 302 complex, we had part of the occupants there were central garage, which are in their own appropriation. And then part of the occupants there were some of Brad's team and our facilities team and also our technical training center.
Right.
So there's about 20 people, 25 people that are being relocated, and we're looking at what those options might be. Right now, our team is temporarily housed in the Berry City Place office on the 1st floor, which displaced the executive staff up to Dill. And that's given them a smaller temporary training space. It won't be their long-term location, I don't believe. And then our facilities team is temporarily housed at Dill right now. So there's 5 people that were working out of central garage area that have now been moved there. So we're housing some monies in reserve to be able to upfit for their future needs in fiscal 25.
Can you remind us what's going to happen with the 302 central garage site?
So I think Brad might have had the most recent communications with Todd. We're doing some mitigation planning right now to understand what the potential for the site could be. And understanding, we don't intend to rebuild there. This is the third time in 10 years that we've had a flooding event. And once we understand what our options are and what we could use that for some sort of watershed or another mechanism, we'll be determining where Central Garage will go as well.
Brad was in the training building. Wasn't there one building that was raised that was?
Yeah, for the record, Brad McAvoy, facilities manager. So there is a storage building in the back that we're temporarily using for mechanics for Central Garage. The front brick building, the 2-story, was where the training center was. That's sustained 3.5, almost 4 feet of water.
Really?
So pretty much any building except the elevated garage that was built out of the floodplain and a little bit of fit up in the former D6 for mechanics to work for now. None of the other buildings are occupied, heat's off, water's drained. Those are pretty much
When
what
was
to
it,
sleep
that
for.
brick building? That's fairly substantial. When was it built?
I'd have to look, but it's on the historic registry,
Yeah.
so we'll have to look at what happens with that down the road. It was actually a water sewer main break there
That
recently.
caused all that?
Kingsbury Construction's got it right there. They're fixing the sewer on right now, but I told them that building is likely gonna stay because it is historic and we'll have to figure that out when that time comes.
Right, but why would we keep it if it's in the floodplain? Or maybe we'll just make
We'll
it,
have to have that discussion with historic preservation and see. There's actually another smaller building in the back that used to be, it was like a supply building that's only about 10 foot square that's also historic, so.
you can give it to historic preservation for their office.
Good idea.
Yes, Senator Chin.
This may be more of a question for the coming year, and I don't know if you can answer it, but I kind of want to overlay what you're presenting here and what I saw in the previous presentation about our projected deficits in the transportation fund in the next 4 years out. So maybe this is more to Senator Kitchell, but I'm curious, like, as you think about the next year, if we continue on this trajectory, coming up $10 or $20 million shortfall, do you anticipate, or will that be top of mind? Because the two ways to shore up that shortfall will be either to cut spending or it will be to raise additional revenues. But will you be thinking about that over the coming year as to where you would have to cut 10 to 20% of this budget? Maybe that's a broader question. I just haven't been in the legislature long enough to see those austere times where the departments have to start cutting or looking for different areas. And I'd be curious if Senator Kitchell has any reflections on what we might be thinking about for the coming budgetary year.
I mean, their CFO basically said they could figure it out within all the different, that there's enough money to move it around, but I think it's a good question. I don't know.
Well, I think we're limping along through 25 by advancing the full amount of the general fund that we had set aside for the IIJA match. So that's an example where you've postponed that impact because then you don't have the money for 26. So it was a 2-year pot of money for that particular purpose. So it's just one of those short-term expediency, but longer term, how will that impact? And that's only one of a variety that we are experiencing in the governor's proposed budget, to be honest, including childcare, including pension plus payments. So next year is going to be the year of reckoning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm anticipating.
That's yes.
Good job of letting us answer the question ourselves, but you had to answer.
Seems welcome to me. What are we going to do about it? The royal we, huh?
Raise revenues, or we can cut spending. I guess that's more of a question for next year. But the revenue increases that we are floating around would line up well for the coming year.
Well, I will go back. A couple of years ago, we paid off our TIP bonds and debt. And the reason for that was to free up and make sure that we had the match to draw down every available federal dollar. And the IIJA potential, even though it was embedded, would allow you to do what you're doing plus. And that's why the match, when we had the money, was there. But ultimately, next year, you could say, look, depending on what you want to do with bonding, we want to make sure we draw down those federal dollars that are time limited. And we would go back and say, mean, because that was the reason we cleared that debt, was to give us that capacity to bond for some of these projects that the IIJA would fund. So that's always an option that's out there as a possibility. And the question is, do you want to forego that level of federal assistance for the lack of the state match, or do you want to bond for the state match and take advantage of those federal dollars when they're available?
And it's not just spending that money. It's not all about spending the money. It's what it does to aid the economy by having that money in there. It doesn't make you stagnant. It keeps everybody working. It keeps all the people that you folks have to hire to be out there and feeding families and all of that. So it would have to be, in my opinion, absolutely positively crucial that we do whatever we can do to draw that money down, especially when you have, it's like contributing to your 401k when you've got an employee that's matching 4%. You got to do that. And so with what that money does for the state of Vermont's economy, we have to make sure.
So those would be the kind of decisions that you can make. And you could say, well, we're not gonna bond, we're just gonna, and then that's where you get into these decisions. Then does that mean you're foregoing those federal resources? What kind of projects do you not move forward on?
Do you think that bonding would shore up the shortfalls that we anticipated in those previous discussions? Is there enough bonding capacity there that would be where we?
I'd be very reluctant to use bonding to deal with a structural deficit, to be honest. What I would say, and that was part of our thinking to pay off the debt, was to give you the capacity to bond for those projects that are timely, you know what I mean, very specific, and would be funded by that infusion of federal dollars.
And gives you a return of whatever that percentage is.
And hopefully the interest rates would be maybe next year.
Any great business that wants to be strategic knows how to manage debt. And debt isn't a bad word as long as it's managed well. And then I think you've positioned it well. Certainly the topic is positioned well, but we've positioned ourselves well to see these bad times and to make sure that we just don't make the mistakes, especially mistakes of the past.
And sometimes we do things that have a short-term expediency, but the long-term impact would outweigh the short term.
I think one of the
You know,
things,
if you're in office for only 2 years, I suppose you can wait and let somebody else inherit it.
I think one of the things that the
That goes
state
for us
has done
too.
well, or the Senate has done well, and I don't know much about the House because I'm not on that side, is to be cautious about funding one-time programs and making them permanent. And I think, as you said, Senator Kitchell, correctly, I believe that you cannot use bonding capacity to shore up structural deficit. You just can't do that because you're going to keep on chasing that forever and ever and ever, and you get no return out of it. All you've done is prop something up that you know is going to fail, and that is imprudent financial practices.
Or when you do have to fund it, then the cost is going to be greater. And the best example is what we did with state employee retirement. You underfunded it, and we did it for teachers' retirement. It freed up money in the short term. It allowed not having to make some really tough decisions. And now, if you look at the state budget, what it's costing us to shore up the pension obligations for teachers and also the retiree health care.
Extra 30 million?
It's enormous, yeah. It is enormous in terms of the pressure that's putting. So if there's any lesson to be learned is don't add a benefit like healthcare for retirees and not have a pre-funding mechanism to recognize that cost. So there are a lot of lessons to be learned from the past. I just hope people remember them because it's so easy to say, I'll fix it, in the short term without thinking about, or let somebody else deal with it when they're sitting around the table. And we see what happens when that thinking takes over.
And we'll see if they're doing that with buildings. They go back to our presentation.
Yeah.
So I just have one more slide, and that's a forecast of our 5-year plan. So I will caveat this with saying we do a biannual assessment of our facilities, and every spring we go out and do a full assessment of every structure. So this plan is analyzed and adjusted based on what we learn on an annual basis, periodically throughout the year.
How many total buildings?
We have 424 structures across 59 maintenance complexes, and then we also support BGS with managing our DMV leased facilities and our agency leased facilities at Berry City Place and Dill.
Those buildings include rail and communications.
Yes.
Also, like each hangar is included in that.
State-owned hangars.
Do you, know how many, state-owned airports in New Hampshire?
I do not. I know AOT has 10, which may be dropping to 9.
I just wanna, well, first of all,
I'm gonna Google it.
all right. Well, because, we're always compared.
Six committee member.
Senator Ingles, if you're not able to find an answer, let us know and we'll reach out.
No, it's kind of interesting to see. We're a little state with half the
Yeah.
population, and
Right.
people are comparing us, and New Hampshire's roads are better, blah, 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 and,
So I Googled how many state-owned airports in New Hampshire. And it says we have 25 airport, well, hold on, we have 25 airports. Let me just.
Well, we can get the number.
We should sell our airport.
Yeah, Senator Mazza loves our state airport.
Just sell them.
A long history of
Yep.
support for,
Yep.
okay.
So based on asset condition, this is what we're looking at for our 5-year plan. The $2.5 million for District 8 facility office will be budgeted for in fiscal 26 is what we're anticipating. And then we pushed out the Jamaica salt shed by a year. And the Lunenburg garage, we've rebid it twice and we haven't been successful. So we're going to keep that one on the radar. And we've made some improvements there. Brad could get into specifics and to kind of help us get through a couple of years. But at some point we will need to replace that
what's
facility.
a bridge shop? East Dorset Bridge Shop.
So currently they're kind of separated in different regions with their components for the Navy bridges, the temporary bridges. There's East Dorset's got a large parcel of land where we could build a facility there to house a lot of that stuff, get it under cover,
So like
Get
Navy
it all
bridges
consi-
for
get-
emergencies.
get everything consolidated. That's kind of a decent location up along that corridor where we could compile, get everything kind of co-located into one area instead of spread out around the state.
So the DA
Easier to manage that way.
The DA facility is, I think, up to like $7 or $8 million total.
It'll be
Three plus 4.5, so
plus the 4.5.
so 8, up to 8.
Our contract that we signed is 9.3 million.
But 9.3.
But
That-
And is
that-
that was,
that-
what was the original? It seems like
The
that's
estimate was around 8 with the addition, as Jana mentioned, with water line. Having to reroute the water line up the right of way, that added like 1,600 feet of additional water line. So that's where that additional cost is shown.
Just over $1 million in cost there for having to reroute.
And these other offices are rebuilt?
They will be, depending on the facility, so Lunenburg would be a rebuild. Springfield garage would be a replacement as well. Mendon office would be a replacement, yeah. Yes,
It's a
Replacement.
rebuild.
the short
In
answer,
the
yes.
existing location?
Rebuild in existing locations.
All on current sites. Mendon would be vacating the current office and moving out to the garage parcel to get everything in one
But the
location.
Lunenburg is a rebuild too, is that right?
On the same site, yes.
That's been on for a while, right? And we've pushed that on off a couple times.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any general contractors willing to bid on it. I don't know if we.
So 0 bids.
0 bids, yeah. So that one in the next fiscal year, the plans are ready to go back out again. I did do some further outreach for District 8 to get some interest. I think we'll have to do that again with Lunenburg, just on the area that it's in.
Right.
Well, it's in Senator Ingles' district,
Yes, I'll find somebody.
Essex.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have somebody in mind.
Texting him right now.
Springfield is a new build on the
What is it,
current
your
site.
brother-in-law?
Ingalls Construction, Ingalls
What's that, Mazza?
Ingalls Construction Company.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna just slap that together real quick.
Yeah. Give you a real deal.
Yes.
Okay.
All of these are on current property parcels we own, nothing, not a new parcel like the District 8 site.
So if
Anything
there's
else?
no other questions, that's all I have for you today. Great, thank you.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
enjoying this sun. I
These
have to
are
tell
hoping
you.
to have completed by the end of this week.
Which one? Yeah,
My,
you'll start
Minus
moving the
the
trucks up.
honestly,
The trucks with the plows.
Well, Senator Mazza would like to do that ribbon cutting, wouldn't you?
Yes, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, up in St. Albans. You can come up in your Corvette.
Okay, thank you.
PC construction is phased out, so we're trying to get as
I'll pick you up.
contractors working at and we start on concrete, start on the water line, so we'll have several different sites we're working at.
So that'll be a big help to those plows that come out of there on the time they have to travel. Good thing you got the memo on the color
I
that Chittenden and
noticed
I had,
this,
but some
yeah.
others failed to read it.
Thank you for having
Particularly
us.
me, my usual black and white.
Okay, thanks for that. We're gonna switch to roadway, traffic and safety. Repeat customer, Rob White. Seems like we've been seeing a lot of you this year, Rob.
Boy,
I'm starting to get a complex because every time I show up, somebody says something like
we
that.
have a lot of highway fatalities.
Yeah.
How many in the last week? 3 fatalities,
possible.
highway fatalities?
Oh,
It's
in the
really,
last week? I didn't know.
yeah, there was, on the news, there were, I can't remember, 2 or 3. One, maybe in Addison County, it was on the news. That would be the governor's highway safety, whatever that is now.
Yeah. There's this highway safety council.
I guess.
So we could have them in again. They spoke at the beginning of the session.
I'd be interested to know where our maintenance is this year compared to last year would be. I know that's not on the agenda, but just day to day what our maintenance is higher or lower. It's been such a
Yeah,
different winter.
One of the days when you weren't here, we did have Ernie in and the maintenance folks, and they said it was basically on par of last year, a little bit higher, they said, but it's still below the 5-year average, whatever.
Wow.
No, not quite. Sorry.
Is this what I should be referring to? You can send it to me. I'm in.
Roadway program.
Tab 5D. There you are. Oh, Jesus. Put it right in.
Good.
Must admit, since I broke my wrist, this arm, I gotta get it.
I've seen you've been holding them. You used to have your
No,
brace.
I do, but I haven't worn it. It's got pretty cruddy.
You can wash it.
What?
You can wash them.
Is that the arm you cook with or what?
What?
You cook
Is
with
that the arm you cook with?
No, fortunately, no, my right hand's fine.
Okay.
Otherwise, my family would go hungry.
Huh.
5D roadway.
So we have roadway and traffic safety on the agenda, Rob, but is that, well, you're talking about those roadway program,
I have
traffic
two,
safety in there, they're 2 separate.
yeah, 2 separate programs. Just trying to make sure, oops, sorry.
We're on the floor at 1
Yes.
on 850.
Yeah. All, and we're gonna suspend rule. Okay, yes, take it away.
Okay, sorry, for the record, Rob White, Project Delivery Bureau Director at the Agency of Transportation. Here to talk about 2 programs, the roadway and traffic and safety program budget. The first one is in, I keep doing that, sorry. Tab 5D, I guess that says, sorry, I can't quite see it. This is a roadway program appropriation of a little over 67 million. That's an increase of 13.2 million compared to last budget. Like the other programs, this includes not only construction, but preliminary engineering and any right-of-way costs for those projects. The budget will fund construction of 51 projects, and then the development of an additional 50 projects. And you can see them sort of parceled out at the bottom there: 38 roadway intersection projects, 22 culvert rehabs, 13 ledge removal, slope stabilization projects, 22 emergency repair projects. And so you will see an influx of emergency projects from this past year's flooding events here, as well as 6 miscellaneous projects that are in there. There's some stormwater mitigation projects and things of that
What
nature.
fits all within the roadway program? How would you do a quick description?
So the roadway program is basically, so remove those paving projects, and some of those can get very complicated, but now you're moving into a more reconstruction on or along the roadway. So ledge projects, ledge removal.
No bridges, because they would be in their own.
Right, no bridges. You could see a similar project in this program as to the traffic and safety that you're gonna see coming up here. There is a little bit of a crossover there, but generally it's roadway reconstruction, any ledge, slope stabilization. There could be small culverts.
Intersection, like if you were gonna do a roundabout.
That will probably be in the traffic and safety budget, but it could be in here. There is some overlap there, especially with those types of projects.
So much of this listed would be a result of, you said due to age or current condition of the assets. So emergency repairs, those would all be eligible for the federal emergency funding.
They are. They will include some match that is needed.
Right, is that 10 or 20% for highway emergency?
I believe that is going to be, I'm not positive. I think it's 20.
Because there's a lot of, well, there's a lot of emergency repair. Here, I'm on to the second slide.
I was gonna jump forward, yeah. So on the 10G1 report, these are the added projects, and that's where you'll see a lot of those emergency projects that are coming. And so these are the permanent repair projects, anything that we could do within the first 270 days. We got 100% federal funds for a lot of the smaller stuff, but then that translates to some bigger projects down the line.
Oh, 100% then.
100% on the first 270 days once the emergency takes place. So we do a lot of
this within that 270-day time frame.
We did some of it, yeah. These are much larger permanent projects. There may have been a temporary fix during that 270 days because the fix was much larger.
These aren't the 100% ones.
No.
So if it's a small one, you have to put it on the 10G1 report. Any project that gets added to the report regardless of cost.
You got it. Yeah.
Well, this is nice information. What do we do with it?
We're just impressed by all the emergency repairs.
Yeah, and so the emergency repair projects, we have sort of a window of opportunity here, 2 to 3 years that Federal Highway wants us to turn these projects over because, there's so many emergencies going on nationwide. So, these projects will get done rather quickly. Here's the 10G2 report. These are the 6 projects that the estimate has increased. These all fall under the 100%. A lot of this has to do with projects that are going through scoping. They may have a small estimate to start. We scope them. We understand really what's there. A lot of times, and I think you'll see a couple in here, like ledge removal projects. They're very hard to estimate because once we start taking rock out, we have to wait till we get some sort of stability there. And we're still seeing some, inflation and risk out there that we're trying to account for. And then the last 10G3 report are the projects that are coming out of the capital program.
They've been completed.
They've been completed, correct. we have quite a few ledge projects going on, as you can see. You know, when we talk about resilience, we talk about water most of the time, but, you know, a lot of the ledges on the interstate that were done 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, they're starting to deteriorate and crumble, and we're finding we're having some rocks fall in the interstate, so we're trying to cut those.
That's not good.
back. No. Nope. That is it for that program, and I'll move on to traffic and safety program if there's no questions. This is tab 5E.
In all those all the projects in that D go through the same project selection process as all the other projects, right? There aren't any projects in the books that are outside of that. I forgot what it's called, the process selection.
Yeah, the VPSB2 selection process. Generally, those are all asset management projects that come through that selection, other than the ER projects.
Other than
The emergency projects, yeah. So this program, the appropriation is just over 50 million. That is an increase as well of 4.13 compared to the last budget. This budget will fund construction of 26 projects and the development of 40 additional projects. They're broken down here below. There's 49 intersection improvement projects, 12 sign replacement, 4 pavement marking projects, and 1 miscellaneous projects. And just to back up those pavement markings, I know this has come up in some other testimony, but you know, that's restriping of interstate, state, class 1 town highway and class 2 town highway roads.
the intersection improvements always related to safety, or could they be something else to be in this?
That's where there's a little bit of overlap. If there is a safety component, whether it's adding a needed lane, potentially upgrading equipment, it could be here. If it was a complete reconstruction of the intersection, because of more asset driven, it would be probably over the roadway.
What about roundabouts?
It kind of depends on why you're doing it.
Yeah. Would they be in here?
Roundabouts are normally in the roadway program. They're much larger projects.
Just so by size, they go there?
By size, and they're a reconstruction.
Do you have any roundabouts in the book?
Um,
Seems like for a while we were getting a lot of, but I haven't heard one recently.
There is a few of them. There's one in Bennington, I believe, which is an odd sort of peanut shaped roundabout, which is sort of a double roundabout pulled together. And other than that, the Putney Road has 3 or 4 roundabouts on it, I believe. That's in development still. Putney Road in Brattleboro.
Oh, okay.
What are you looking
So
for?
like they're gonna do a series of roundabouts?
Yeah.
Instead of stops. I think to do at least one roundabout a year, that's why.
Oh, I think so.
Okay,
It's
10G.
supposed to be actually
One.
safer, and they,
Definitely.
you know, and they certainly move traffic.
I love the way they work.
I love it.
I really do.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits. I would say the one place where they don't work as well sometimes is when you have a intersection that has 1 or 2 legs that have high traffic and 1 or 2 that don't.
It's kind of
That sort of cuts back on their efficiency a little bit.
I
But
find the multi-lane ones really hard. I
yeah,
like the, you know, because you feel like you're not in the right lane to, you know, depending on what route you're picking off. And there's one down in New Hampshire.
There's a couple of big
Yeah,
ones that I've
yeah,
Portsmouth.
yeah.
But the agency, I remember years ago, before I was here, the agency was not supportive of roundabouts.
Well, Senator Mazza, who was the person?
Tony Reddy.
Tony Reddy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he started promoting those, got 20 years ago.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time.
And I think Tony's platform was, you know, they can go anywhere and should go everywhere. And me personally, I'm not sure that I believe in a cookie cutter approach, one size fits all. You know, it does sort of depend.
On a hill, they're.
Yeah, you need good sight distance. You need sort of balanced traffic on all the legs. They get a little intricate. The peanut roundabout that I mentioned is an interesting situation where it's an awkward intersection to start. But yeah, they work. The nice thing is they do keep traffic at a slow speed, and normally if there's any issues, it's pretty small
Right, the crashes,
or
less
minor.
crashes, and when you do have a crash, it's not, there's like much fewer deaths.
Right. 10G1 report, these are the projects that are being added to this program. You can see there's quite a few sign replacement projects there.
I think we should create a new tab called the Tony Reddington tab, where you can just report how many roundabouts they're at.
Yeah,
Did we do something to ease the pain about the notch, going over to the notch there? Did we do something, you changed their roundabout or something?
We did give some testimony early on. I think that was even in the secretary's overview where we talked about
Okay,
the,
all right. Yeah.
Chicanery?
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
a special
chicanery.
term.
chicane.
Yeah.
But it's based on the same word that chicanery is, yeah. Building some chicane, but that wasn't in the book. That was just like a proposal, I think, too.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, I don't know a lot about that, but they are looking at ways of deterring trucks, making them make a motion before they actually get into the notch.
Temporary structures. See
And
how-
at a point where they could still turn around.
Right. Diverging diamond, here it is, there it is.
Where,
Was it on
where?
there?
In the notch.
No,
Well,
Take some dynamite.
yeah,
The diversion
slope
by
removal,
diamond.
ledge removal, oh, yeah.
Here's the 3 projects on the
Blow it up.
10G2 report that have increased in cost.
Oh, wow.
I think we'll notice the one in Plainfield, I think we know about, which is the intersection there on US Route 2 and Main Street.
Is that still
It's
chugging along
It-
in the PE kind of phase, or where are
is
we?
chugging along, yes.
If that's the right verb.
As you can see by the cost, it's getting more and more complicated, and it's a
That is a
it's a
complicated-
complicated site.
Yeah, and it's like the whole local politics or local community reaction is complicated.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You need a bypass.
Yeah, where would it go?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
We could build it over the Winooski.
Yeah, just north of the village, there might be a place there, but
Well, as I said, as long as it goes, dumps out of the store, he's fine.
Right. All arrows lead here.
Where are we with the double diamond? That's Maz's favorite intersection.
Well, obviously the cost is up, right? It was on your,
yep, the cost is
It was
up.
on this one?
yeah, the prior slide. The diverging diamond,
What, 12 million bucks?
yeah,
Whoops.
whoops.
Wow. What
And
happened there?
Went from 16.8 to 28.5 almost.
Is that because of lack of labor, or, I mean, it just seems though all the increases have been shortage of help or somewhere along the line or product?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. The difficult thing here, I think, is just risk, right? It's a risky site. It's got a
Yeah.
lot of traffic. There's a lot of management going on there. Contract 1 is completed, which had to do with a lot of the utility relocations, and then contract 2 we're trying to prepare for.
We saw some
We-
pictures.
We still have some legal battles going on for right of way as well. So some of the cost is some of that's continuing to go on, appeals and
Yeah,
such.
you worked with Skip Valley for a while there, yeah.
Yes.
That's all commercial pretty much through there.
Yeah.
It's not residential.
Okay, thank you.
And these are the projects that are completed under that program. 3 of them there. And that's all I have.
There was a project, Rob, off Essex Five Corners where it was meant to go on the back way to go through there. Is that moving along as well? I knew that we had secured the right of ways and all of that.
Crescent Connector.
Right.
Do you want to talk about it, Joel? It's in your program.
So this
For the
year,
record.
for the record, Joel Perigo, Municipal Assistance Program Manager. It's well underway, construction, and it's estimated to be complete this October, I think is the final completion date.
Okay, so I went by the,
But they're ahead of schedule too.
I went by there the other night, I just couldn't see, it was dark, but whatever.
Yeah, you'll still see some of the signs are up, but they're in a winter shutdown mode. Construction. So it'll be open this year.
While I was down there, I haven't seen a hockey game with the man over there, yeah, so. Senator, and then can walk on water. It's frozen, but he can walk on water. I've seen it. That's all.
The Crest Connect is really gonna carve back some roadway. We're gonna take this leg of 5 corners and make it a pedestrian space in the Essex Vision, so I'm really excited about it.
I remember seeing the drawing.
Is that part of your district?
No, my old district, but 5 corners become 4 corners.
Producing.
That was,
corners. That
that
could
was
be your
quite
campaign.
a, yeah.
Cutting corners.
Cutting corners.
Aren't you clever?
Okay.
We're done.
That's all I had.
Not yet, or? I think we got through all your slides.
That's it.
Yeah, we're done this one.
Okay, I did one quick question. I know on your other report, the roadway program, the out years was quite a big increase. Is that just from like IIJA money that's when it actually gets billed and in the budget? Like it went from 50 million to 100 million or something.
A little bit of it is that, but again, it's a lot of the emergency work that's coming, and in the next 2 years, we're gonna be putting those projects out to construction, so there's some of that as well.
This year's 52 and projected 28 is 103, so doubling of the budget, but so it's mainly.
It's a little bit of the IIJA additional funds, there's some bigger projects in there, like the Divergent Diamond, the rest of that contract. And then there are all those emergency projects in there as well. I think there's 60 some odd emergency projects, maybe even a little higher than that.
Until December and again, July first.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll move on to planning and research, policy planning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One moment here.
Senator Engels, a correction on that is, right now, our current construction schedule is showing completion of July of 24.
Oh, not October. Let's see.
The contract, the original contract completion date was in October, but they were well ahead.
I thought you were gonna correct them on the New Hampshire airport.
No.
I got about
I don't have the same Google information.
Get about 25 articles deep on that. You know, we're getting there. I'm gonna pay attention to what's going on in front of me.
Okay, well, go ahead.
That's the advantage of the bully pulpit.
Good morning. My name's Amy Bell, and I'm the Bureau Director for the Policy Planning and Research section. And before I get started, I should also mention, we also have the mapping section, development review, and all of the highway access permits sections are all under policy planning and research. Just a couple of things. I often get asked, well, what does policy and planning do? And so people are always kind of like scratching their heads, and
And how is that different than Michelle's shop?
Michelle is my boss. She's
Okay, it
the,
is the
she's
same
the
job.
division, yeah,
Okay,
she's the
yeah.
division director. Yeah,
Oh, you're the bureau director.
I'm the bureau director, correct. So policy and planning is basically, we are the incubator of ideas, new federal mandates that come down, legislative studies, those sorts of things all come to the policy and planning section, and it's where we convene, list stakeholder groups from internal and external to the agency to figure out how might we implement a given idea. So that's where we are sort of the first stop, and then oftentimes if something takes foothold within the agency, we hand it off to other parts of the agency. And some examples of things that in the past that we've done, right now you're having a lot of discussions about mileage-based user fee. That started in policy and planning. Now it's over in the environmental policy and sustainability section. The Transportation Alternatives Program actually started in policy and planning. Most people don't know that. Also, all the ITS that we now have, that came into us to incubate and then was handed off to applicable folks to oversee. And then the Strategic Highway Safety Program is another example of new initiatives that come down to us from the federal government. We figure out how do we do this, and then help them get foothold in the agency in the appropriate division and or
It just had
section.
a huge report, it's about that thick. And I haven't read it yet. It's AOT related. I can't remember the number of reports that, and so I set it aside, but it's a huge tome, and it's like, if we ask for this, I'm not sure what the utility would be, because who's gonna plow through it?
Is it one of the legislative reports?
I think it
perhaps?
probably was, yeah, and it's quite a thick report, I'll have to bring it in.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
it just strikes me sometimes we may not understand the resource commitment that some of these reports require. I remember, the study around bringing commuter rail from St. Albans to Montpelier.
Yeah.
And it was done by a consultant, was over $100,000 to tell us exactly what we knew. It wasn't financially feasible, but, so,
But very much appreciated by the local people's base.
I guess so. I thank you for that positive. So I guess sometimes it would be very helpful for some of this stuff to say, this is what it's gonna require to do this kind of, work.
Yeah, you'll see the costs of those types of studies are embedded in our budget. That's part of our annual budgeting process, involves addressing any of the legislatively required studies.
Well, I'll get that, and I'll show it to you. It's in my memory. I mean, I've looked at occupancy
It
rate
wasn't the
caps.
climate report, because there was a climate report, but that wasn't that.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
climate. Well, no,
It wasn't that thick.
It wasn't on truck weights, was it?
No.
That's one of the most recent ones, so some current examples, some things that you're more familiar with, the Transportation Equity Framework is another document that's being, and again, that's just trying to figure out how do we as an agency address equity issues organization-wide? And so that's something that's currently in our section and getting ready to be handed off to others. And then the Transportation Resiliency Planning Tool, which I think you're probably familiar with, as a part of the whole climate initiative. So those are some examples of just the things that we oversee in policy and planning.
So are you moving your slides? Because they're
I
not
will.
moving there.
I will.
I didn't.
The most important thing is, unlike many other divisions, except for finance and admin, we support the entire agency. So it's a little bit different. And I should have mentioned that on tab 7 is where we are in the book. So just as an understanding of sort of organizationally, how we break out, and one of the things that's a little bit unique about policy planning and research is that the administrative budget for the entire policy planning and intermodal development division lies within our budget. So the folks, there are 7 positions in total that represent the administrative budget for our entire division. And then so anything where you see research, policy and planning, development review and permitting, myself, that section, that's all folks that I oversee. But the rest of that is all of the administrative staff for our division, and it also includes our public outreach section. So I just wanted to highlight that. So it's a total of 28 positions are encompassed in the budget. Only 21 of them are actually in policy planning and research. Sure.
What does the color coding on this slide indicate to you?
Just the number of people and what layer they are in the organization.
So red doesn't mean different than orange?
No, just the reporting structure. So they report.
Okay.
That's all.
So,
No significance.
so in your work in policy and planning, we have at the University of Vermont, we have that funded, I think, Senator Jeffords. Do you work with the folks at UVM in that?
Yes, I have regular interactions with Greg Rowengold at UVM's Transportation Research Center.
And they're a good resource to us?
Yeah, they're a very useful resource, and we're trying to work with them some more to try to figure out a way to, we're required federally to use a certain percentage of our budget on the research program. It's a required program, but it's not a lot of money overall. So we're trying to figure out how do we do a better job of ensuring that we can match UVM researchers with ongoing research needs of the agency. So that's a conversation that we've got ongoing now. Michelle Boomhauer's also been in on those conversations.
Michelle is retired. Did I hear that?
That's news to me.
She's been threatening.
Yeah, I can't, you'll have to ask her.
All right, I will. If you're listening, Michelle, give me an answer.
She was upstairs when I said earlier.
So just to give you an idea of like some of the things that we do in the agency, I'm not gonna go over all these, you've got them in front of you, but I'm just gonna highlight a few. I mentioned the policy and planning administrative budget is in here, as well as all the division's organizational costs are part of the budget you're gonna be seeing. And then in policy and planning proper, we do a lot of the federal discretionary grants, so Costa Pappas, whom I know many of you has come in to visit you on past occasions. The Better Connections Grants Program is overseen through us. All the cross-border initiatives and interactions that we have with the folks up in the province of Quebec occur through our section.
What about New Hampshire?
Yep, every international and regional cross-border activity is through our section. Yep. And then I mentioned the Transportation Equity Framework, all the federal bill review and monitoring, as well as the state. So all the legislative bill monitoring happens in the policy and planning section. And then public outreach, I think it's a pretty straightforward thing, but I think the most visible and notable thing is we're now matching up public outreach consultants with V-Trans project managers on individual projects so that we're doing a better job of communicating to the public what's coming up as far as construction projects, what they should expect, timelines, that sort of thing. We've gotten some really good feedback on that. So that's one of the aspects that's important.
It may not be in your wheelhouse, I hate that term. But I was on the news, and actually we've done it in Vermont, and that's using the signage on highways and sometimes doing very catchy phrases, and I think they're effective. But the federal agency is now restricting some of the creativity that agencies have come up with.
Yeah. I'm reading the same press reports you are. That is not something that I have any involvement with. That's over in our Operations and Safety Bureau. They're the ones who deal with all of our.
Yeah, we had the person come in that did this, that program's design comes up with that.
Yeah, actually, remember Alex Portalupi's son came up with one of the first and was very clever. And then there's been a lot of really creative signage, but it's too bad the federal government, because sometimes those are the most effective techniques to catch drivers' attention.
So Amy Tato, that stuff that she does isn't associated with the sign.
Apparently not. It's not in her
No,
wheelhouse.
she would help with our messaging out to the public about what we're doing about the signs.
Okay.
No, we're not gonna use wheelhouse. There's an Alleyway or
And we don't orient anymore, we onboard. Just to let you know.
So he likes the vessel term.
yeah, the vessels are good.
Yes.
So other activities of the Policy and Planning Division, you can see the Transportation Planning Initiative. Many of you are familiar with it. It's been around for 32 years now. That's our cooperative relationship with the state's regional planning commissions and the Metropolitan Planning Organization up in Chittenden County. We have direct grants with them. They provide us with really essential help and service and outreach and a lot of technical assistance to your municipalities and your districts. And they assist us with project prioritization, a really key thing. And then they do a lot of assistance to municipalities, as I mentioned, on road, bridge, and culvert inventory work, municipal roads, general permit support, all those sorts of things. The mapping section, and I think the most notable thing here is they're the section that does the town highway maps and the mileage certifications. Those are important because that's how your towns get their individual aid. It's based on those certifications. And then we have the research section. We touched a bit on that. And you can see they do all of our national interaction with folks at the national level. And then development review and permitting, that's where we do Act 250, Act 145, which are the transportation impact fees, which are being discussed a lot right now in the context of S308. And this is also where we do all of our Act 250 reviews.
So what is TRB, NCHRP?
Transportation Research Board, National Cooperative Research Project.
And UTC, sounds like a,
University
sounds
Transportation
like a
Center.
health disease.
It's just down the hall, if I remember, from Senator Chitten's office.
Next building over.
So budget-wise, here are the dollars and cents of the year. I guess the best way to explain what you see here is we have a really unique situation this year. Chittenden County MPO, or Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, which is the only metropolitan planning organization in Vermont, is a direct recipient of federal dollars. So those dollars are earmarked, can only be used by them. And if they don't use them, they just accumulate. And this year, they decided to use a substantially larger quantity of those accumulated funds. And so what it's done is created a really interesting thing in our budget where you can see we're using less state funds. And the reason is because they are actually matching those dollars with local dollars rather than with state dollars. So normally we would be contributing a 10% match to that. They chose this year to use $740,000 more in federal funds, and they're providing the match. So what happens is you see our federal funds go up, but the state funds go down, and you're kind of like, that doesn't make any sense, but that is why. And that's a lot. They oftentimes will do maybe $150,000 out of their accrued balance. This is a much larger chunk of accumulated apportionments. Again, earmarked for them, not something we can touch, not something we can reallocate anywhere else.
Your interdepartmental transfer.
Yep, and an interdepartmental transfer is kind of a unique situation. Those are funds that come over for the Better Connections program, and they're from a combination of locations. The Agency of Commerce and Community Development provides a portion towards the share of those grants to reduce the municipal share. And then the Agency of Natural Resources, there's some clean water funds, because one of the provisions in those grants is you can get do clean water work as a part of those grants. So this year, for example, there's 3 new projects. 2 of them decided they would go after some of the clean water funds as well. And what happened this year is we have a situation where during COVID, we selected new Better Connections projects just before COVID. And then COVID hit and communities were at a standstill as far as what to do with municipal outreach and how to implement these studies. So we allowed communities, it's an 18-month timeline traditionally for these projects. We allowed them to basically take as much time as they needed to get through them. So this year we have a situation where we've got 2 sets of projects that are overlapping. So that's why you see the increase for this current year. And then this is just to show you sort of how our funding has worked over the last 5 years, including the proposed for this year. Most important, the top is cumulative, so that's all funding. And then the bottom part is the state funds, including what's proposed for this year. And you can see there's been a considerable amount of variability. In FY23, there's a big spike in total, and that was the year that we got some of the EV incentive dollars. It was the first year of those, and you all made a decision to place them in policy and planning's budget when the budget was passed. So that's why it shows big increase and then decreases from
I'm
that.
sure we did that at the agency's recommendation.
I have no idea. It was not in this rule at that time. Had to go somewhere.
Yeah,
We'll take it.
yeah, because you guys were trying to figure out where they're gonna go.
Yep. So. And then just to show you sort of how the funding comes in and how it goes out, our funding profile, this is where the funds come from. And the most important thing to show on this is the vast majority of our funding, almost 78% of it, is derived from federal sources. So those are pretty much, for all intent and purposes, 80% federal, 20% state. And oftentimes, if it's to the regional planning commissions, they also pay a 10% share on there. So we do 10, they so funding to support the program comes from 4 basic sources. We have the statewide planning and research work programs. There's 2 of them. There's one for research, and then there's one for policy and planning as well. And then I mentioned the pass-through monies from CCRPC to CCRPC. That's a substantial piece of funding, and you'll see it again in the next chart. And then obviously the transportation fund is where our state dollars come from. And so funding wise, the $10 million is the federal funding profile. So 10.7 is federal dollars, 3.1 is state, and then the 116 is the interdepartmental transfer. And then you can see how the monies go out. The vast majority of our funds go out through grants. Those are grants to CCRPC and the regional planning commissions. And this is the last slide. This is just how it all breaks out between the various sections within the agency. And you can see the metropolitan planning, the MPO pass-through, as it's called on here, is $5.1 million in our current project. And then you can see the regional planning commissions is just under 2.2 million for them. And then you can see that it breaks out throughout the rest of the sections.
Could other towns create an MPO?
Yeah, you have to meet federal requirements, and then you have to seek designation through the governor, yeah. It could happen. There was some sense that perhaps with the last census that the Upper Valley might be a by state, New Hampshire and Vermont, that their population, but it had not yet risen to that level. But it could at some point in the future.
I was thinking it was municipal, but it's
Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Yeah.
Metropolis of Chittenden County.
That's
You're
right.
welcome to it.
We got a Costco.
How's your footbridge doing?
Which one?
Your footbridge
Yeah,
across over the interstate.
We should invite them in, but it's cost overrun, so it's very.
You know, I was
not
in
happening.
a little
It's $6 million.
Spanish city and they had a walkway called walkway that actually went over, in that case, to the beach. And it shows it can be, you know,
No, definitely done.
it's just commonly done.
Any other questions for Ms. Bell? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then we'll hear from Joel before we break. So you can do that in 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
We've heard about bikes and pedestrians, although Maz is gonna ask you a lot of questions about bikes.
Yep, there you go.
I think we should register e-bikes.
How are you handling electric bikes? That's what I'm concerned about.
Joel will tell you all about
Okay.
I'll tell you about the money and like the program.
which tab, like that.
Oh. I got it on my slides.
Yeah,
I think
5D.
I was gonna say 5F, but
Well, this one G. In my book, it looks like 5G, but on your slide, it says 5D.
5D is roadway.
5F.
5F is park and ride.
Oh, okay, sorry.
5, I think, I put in my presentation in order.
5G.
5G.
5G,
5G.
on your tab, on your first slide, it says 5D. Oh, that's the roadway.
Yeah.
Maybe I looked at the wrong, back on Rob.
Yeah, that's where I found
That's
that
my
one.
problem. I clicked on the wrong.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, I have it on. as my
We're right
screen
on the
saver.
edge of our chair.
Oh, look at a roundabout. You probably slipped that in, just as we heard, we talked about roundabout. You
Yep,
quickly
I
changed
do.
this coverage.
Quickly changed it. I love the one route.
It's the same one from that started at 11 o'clock, right? It's all one.
Moves traffic
the whole
so
thing.
well.
Yeah, remember you used to
Oh, back up, yeah.
Now the question from Senator Kitchell is, where is that roundabout?
Yeah, where is, but I, it's
You know
not,
my presentation?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's Sykes Avenue. Hartford.
Hartford? Oh, you're gonna pull it up?
Of course, I have to have updates. I apologize. Here's in very often.
Maybe you can see it without the glare.
Oh, where is it though?
Just kind of north of White River Junction.
Route 5 and Sykes Avenue.
right
Oh, I
there,
know where it
right as
is.
you get off.
Yeah, yeah, because that's where you would go out to the transportation building and
Right.
on the
Yes.
Holiday Inn and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
forth. State offices are still out there.
Post
The
office.
post office. The
Yeah.
former central post office.
There's been a lot of development out there in the
Yes,
last,
yeah, that's cool.
50 years.
Should be good.
All set?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So for the record, my name is Joel Perigo. I am V-Trans Municipal Assistance Program Manager. And yeah, this is the Sykes Avenue roundabout, Sykes Avenue Route 5 intersection. It was a program a project that went through as a locally managed project, so went through our program. Completed really last year.
Was it the whole roundabout or was it about the pedestrian?
It was everything. Yeah, because it was a locally managed project. Yeah. So I did put these.
Huge increase. It said 25 to 26. You're going from 11.6 to 21.6 on bike ped facilities.
Your overall.
Am I in the wrong one?
So that's,
You're just ahead of me. That's all. So I numbered them in order that they show up in the book. And the first one was the Park and Ride program, which is on tab 5F. And this year's budget, not very significant, 1.4 million. Mostly due to the fact that we've been working off of a Park and Ride study that was completed in, I forget what the date is, I don't remember putting it in here, but we've basically completed all the projects that came out of that study. We're underway with a new study right now to determine where there's unmet needs throughout the state, with a focus on Route 100 from Waterbury to Stowe.
Well, that's had a lot of money invested in that whole
Area,
Yeah.
right? And it sees a lot of traffic too. So that's what we're looking at, is where we might be able to find some opportunities there for additional park and rides.
maybe we need to do a study for a train. There used to be a train that went from Waterbury to Stowe.
Really?
So the majority of the funding that's showing up in this program for this year is for the expansion of the Manchester Park and Ride, which is expected to be completed. And actually, that may be slightly moved out. We've had some changes just since I put this together a month ago. So that expected completion may be another year. And then there's some line items in the budget that show up for future development of park and rides, $325,000 for preventative paving. And then we are continuing the municipal park and ride program. We did fund 2 new projects last year, adding 70 spaces. So we're up to a total of 1,488 spaces created with that program.
And when was this program created? It didn't exist back in the day?
I don't know if Amy might have a.
Senator Mother, I remember.
It's been a long time.
Yeah,
Wow,
I
that's a
can't
big
speak.
deal.
I'm not sure. It did go on a hiatus there for a few years.
10, maybe 12 years, would be my guesstimate.
The,
I remember when I first got here, Senator Ash talked about it quite a bit. We talked about the number of spaces that we're adding each year. Maybe that was because it came out of a study saying the need was so great. But now with less commuting, I bet you the new study will show less need, I assume.
but we have just.
Well, that and we've completed
Right.
a lot of these capital projects throughout the state, including which I think is in the
You
next slide.
Really, the municipal ones down at the bottom,
Right.
the towns often will do.
Those are municipally owned and
Yeah.
managed,
Right.
and that's what those 1,488 spaces are the municipal, just to be clear, those are municipal spots. This does not count all the spots in the state park and rides, which I don't have.
Those were the ones at
Handy.
the interstate exchange.
Like
Right.
in
Yeah.
Richmond and the
Yeah,
one in Williston.
exactly. And the Williston, which is
Right, which one, the
the
one just.
most recently completed, which is right here.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of how many cars I see when I drive by.
I think so
Not that
it's starting to build, it's filling up.
Yeah, no, I'm joking, but it hasn't, but
I think there's some adjustment time needed for
Right.
people, the commuters to
Because
figure
Richmond
out.
still is available.
And that one's jam-packed still.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's just a matter of time before they start shifting and one exit away.
and you can see the stormwater.
Yeah.
Yes,
Got some emails from a constituent really concerned about lighting crossing the street right there because it's a magnet. Do you have any update on what we're doing in order to provide nighttime lighting for around that stretch?
crossing what street are you talking about?
Route 2A here.
going to St.
Yeah,
George.
it's very treacherous and you still get people walking to the gas station.
Sure. Walking from the gas station from the parking lot?
Yeah, so if you're waiting for a ride and so they can't see and it's just. What's that?
Just kind of-
It's underneath the interstate, it's a haul.
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
they're going across the interstate to that gas station.
Oh, my God.
So for the record, Rob White, Project Delivery Bureau, we have been talking with the town on that crossing there. We actually, this coming summer, we're gonna do a study to make sure we understand, what the need is and hopefully come up with some sort of solution to deal with that. We've heard not only lighting, but there's no actual crossing facility there. It's actually the culmination of really two projects. We have the Park and Ride project that built some pedestrian facility out to 2A, and then we had another pedestrian project that was done a few years back that got them from the other side of the interstate up to Hurricane Lane.
Hmm.
And there's a sidewalk under the overpass?
There is.
There's a sidewalk under that overpass,
Yes.
both sides,
No, one side.
on the other side, the far side.
It is
So
on
you
the
gotta
south
cross
south
the
side.
Other side from the park and ride.
So that's the problem.
Yeah,
Getting across.
and that's what we're looking at. Yeah. Yeah, it's just out of the frame of this,
Yeah,
out of this picture.
And if you're waiting for a ride, you need the amenities of the gas station. There's a Dunkin' Donuts there. It's a real pedestrian magnet.
But isn't there a gas station the other way, but it's just too far? It's away from
No
the
gas station.
There's nothing there, I don't think.
You gotta go underneath the interstate and across.
I guess I'd take it. you gotta
And
drive.
Hurricane Lane is just, well, there's that longer term and then business offices.
Oh, is this, right where just above that's where the new police barracks is?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Good, now I'm getting that now.
They should open.
That, the access road on the left-hand side of the picture goes up.
It goes up
Right to the
Sell
police
coffee.
barracks.
Saw that the other day.
Coffee and donuts at the police station, that would be good.
They get a lot of walking.
Full service.
Maybe they could reduce the transportation money we put to school toys.
Carve out a little space, lobby.
Right now, we're up to
I thought I'd
5G.
cured you on Saturday night, but I haven't.
That's a big increase on 5G. The bike ped, from 11 and 25 to 21, projected in 26 million.
So a large part of that projection is based on a line item that we carry sort of for future projects. But those future projects are undetermined. They're based on applications that come in on an annual basis. So they could come in and we could get applications that would be funded for even existing projects. So they may ask for some additional funding and we provide that. And so it might be spent in the very next year. Or it may be a slew of new projects that may not spend construction funding, which is a large portion of the funding we provide for 4 years out. So it's not the most I don't know, factual sort of representation of what it, but it's our best guess based on future
I was just
awards.
thinking that maybe you had
There's nothing-
identified projects for 26 that would be.
No, there's nothing that's necessarily coming up. So a chunk of that 21 million would be actual projects, and another chunk, and if you looked at the line item, it says statewide new awards or something that you're going to see probably in that particular year. There's a large number under construction, and probably inflates that.
So the LVRT, which is on here, one of the areas that people park is sort of that park and ride in West Danville. And I think some of them probably park using the Joe's Pond Beach, which is kind of a problem as well. Is that scheduled, did I hear that that's scheduled for a rebuild?
Well, the park and ride,
And would that be a light pedestrian facility because it's really serving the park and ride and whatever?
the park and ride, they're doing something with one of the paving projects through Matt Bogojic's project.
Okay.
But other than that, I thought that was just a simple line striping, and other than that, I'm not aware of there's no expansion or anything like that happening there. It may be like an access management piece too.
I see.
So the true parking ride in is as you're coming south, top the crest of the hill before you get to the intersection on the left. Is that the true parking ride in Danville, or is it over on the same side of where
This is West Danville, Joe's Pond,
yeah,
across
so,
from Hastings Store.
okay, so that's where it is, okay.
Yeah. So this year's budget is proposed at 11.6 and change to support 70 ongoing projects, 35 different communities, with 27 under construction state fiscal year 25. So there's 2 grant programs that are housed under the bike and ped program. They're usually sent out as one solicitation, federally funded at 80% federal, 20% local match. And then we have a small scale grant program, which is state funded and is construction or implementation only. So if there's any design required, that falls to the municipalities. Those are intended to be smaller scale sidewalk gap projects, installation of rapid rectangular flashing beacons, pedestrian ramp improvements, those sorts of things. And then you'll see various line items spread out through the budget, usually indicated by a statewide to begin with. There's one for the bike ped coordinator salary, the local motion bike ferry. There's still a line item being carried for LVRT community grants, which is an earmarked fund. We did 1 round and we still had some funds left over. And then, so there was 2 or 3 projects, I believe, selected. And we're in the middle of selecting some additional fund projects for those. And then again, the line items for the new projects.
There is a gas station the other way. It's just 4.2 miles from St. George.
St. George, practically at the intersection.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking.
Like an hour and a half.
Near
And then-
Club or something. Isn't there a golf course out
Rocky
there?
Ridge.
Rocky Ridge. I had a picture of the Moortown sidewalks that were completed recently. And so the way that our 10G report works for new projects coming into the program and the bike ped program, the timing is not ideal. We make awards typically in August, and by the time we get those projects programmed and obligated for them to show up in the 10G report, some of them do and some of them don't. And so I included a list of the new awards we made last year out of the 23.
So is this like a
selection.
duplication? Is this an extraction then of other stuff in the book?
This is not.
No.
And that's what I'm saying is like this. So part of these projects show up in the book and part of them don't. And it's just based on that timing of us getting them programmed versus not. And when we're building the budget. So. And so the way this is broken out.
That's not your teeth.
Sorry, cough drop. Would you like one?
No, but every time I do something like that, I need a crown, so I'm.
The top 2 are additional funds, or 3, sorry, top 3. So those are projects that we had in the capital program and we're providing additional funding to make them hopefully whole and complete. And then the next 4 under the large scale design and construction are new projects that we've selected for funding. And then the next grouping is our scoping projects, so scoping and feasibility type studies. And then the small scale grant awards are at the bottom.
And who applies for these? Are these municipalities?
These are all municipal projects, and some municipalities will apply solely on their own, and a lot of them will look to the regional planning commissions for assistance in those applications. And the next one is tab 5H, which is the Transportation Alternatives Program. And this year's proposal at $5.4 million for 59 ongoing projects in 45 communities, with 28 under construction state fiscal year 25. Again, this is another annual grant program. Last year's T-bill included a provision to increase the maximum grant award from 600,000. From 300,000 to 600,000. And there is a statute that requires for us to provide half of that funding to environmental mitigation type projects, and then the other half is for the remaining categories, but shall be preferentially weighted for bike and pedestrian type projects. When IIJA passed the set aside for the TA program, it basically doubled. It was around 2.2 million, and now Vermont's portion is 4.3 million.
Is this mostly T-fund money then?
No, so this is mostly federal highway funding
Mostly,
and local match.
I mean, this doesn't tell you what.
Yeah. There is I believe there's a summary sheet in there
On alternatives?
on any of the programs. Does Lenny's spreadsheet make it in? Oh, okay. It's a breakdown of the funds, you have federal, state, and local shares.
Oh, yeah. But we have that for each project.
But if you look at each project, you'll see that they're all federal and local. And then the eligible project types under this program are bike ped, rail trail conversions, turnouts and overlooks, community development and historic preservation, and then the environmental mitigation category. And then again, just a list of the awards that were made last year. We were able to make 100% of the awards last year with the increase in the IIJA money. Because the cap was still set at 300,000, every applicant got some level of funding.
That's not in our book, though.
Yeah.
This is not, these are all available on VTrans website though, both for bike ped and transportation alternatives.
Sanborn Bridge in Linden, is that the one that always gets run into?
Yeah. Box trucks do not fit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then moving on to the 10G reports. So as I mentioned, some of these projects for the new selection made it in, others did not. So the BP 23s would indicate the new projects. The MVRT was an earmark, which is a resurfacing of the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail and a small extension into downtown St. Albans. And then the top LVRT projects are the projects that were selected as part of the LVRT earmark. And then again, we're carrying a statewide line item for the remainder of those funds. And we will be selecting new projects. And then this is the same added for transportation alternatives. Again, just
How many times is
new
South
projects.
Burlington on there?
Not enough.
Oh,
North Williston and Shelburne.
Well, it used to be Colchester, but we don't see it much anymore in the room, so now it's South Burlington.
They dumped me.
Unless you come back and bring a balance of power here.
I know it. Gotta bring some pies.
Well, you might have got it all on your bridge project, but that's okay.
I know, and it's not even up near me.
oh, you even have a salt shed there.
Yeah, so that's part of the environmental mitigation side of transportation alternatives.
Represent 11 communities, but sort of broad themselves.
And this is the 10G report for projects that have been increased by, in this case, 100%, but in most cases on our projects, our grants, it's just the fact that they've gotten additional funding. So
So is the volume for sidewalk just extended? That's a huge increase for sidewalks.
So my thought is that may have been a scoping study to begin with, and then we provided an additional award for construction.
Yeah, it's all grants.
Must be,
Yeah. And then Hyde Park, I assume, was just an addition and no awards as well to increase that. And then the final 10G report, which is all the projects that have been, I'll say, completed, not always constructed, because there are some, I think you'll see that have $0 that were canceled. And I noticed I got a typo there. Should be 24 and 25. And 24 and 25. So a couple typos.
okay.
And
So the $0 that was likely canceled? Is that what you're
so
saying?
those are, Swan was definitely, yes, both of those were canceled projects. So no money spent.
But not necessarily, but it means when they're on this report, they're out of the book entirely.
Yes.
We don't know why. So we don't have time to get into that today.
We'll let the house do it.
Okay.
All right.
Unless there's burning questions for Joel.
Oh, thank you.
We'll break for the day. Interman's already got ahead of us.